The lights of the starship Serenity dimmed for night cycle. Most of the crew slept in their small rooms, but not all beings on the ship were asleep. Not all beings on the ship were even known to be there. Juri moved silently through the empty hallway. Her steps made no sound. Her body cast no shadow. To anyone watching, there would be nothing to see. She had been on this human ship for 3 months now, and not once had anyone noticed her. Day 94 of observation. She whispered, her words captured by the small device on her wrist. The humans continue their journey to the Centauri system. They remain unaware of my presence. Juri was not human. She was Neurillian, from a planet 12 star systems away. Her people had evolved the ability to bend light around their bodies. They were completely invisible to almost every species in the galaxy. For thousands of years, they had watched other civilizations, learning, observing, but never making contact. Humans were their newest study. Dangerous, the elders said. Unpredictable, but fascinating. The door to the engineering room slid open. Juri stopped, pressing herself against the wall. She didn't need to hide. No one could see her, but old habits were hard to break. A man walked out, rubbing his eyes. It was Ta, the ship's lead engineer. Juri had been watching him closely. Among all the humans she studied, he interested her most. There was something different about him. Is someone there? Tai asked suddenly, looking directly toward where Juri stood. She froze. It was impossible. No human could see a Neurillian, yet Tai was staring right at the spot where she stood. After a moment, he shook his head and walked away. Juri let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Just a coincidence, she told herself. Humans often sensed things that weren't there. The next morning, Captain Hyun called a meeting in the ship's main room. Juri slipped in behind the last crew member, taking her usual spot in the corner. No one noticed the slight shift in the air as she moved. "We'll reach the research station in 10 days, Hyun said. He was a strong man with a serious face. Juri had noted in her reports that he led with calm authority. Any issues to report? A ship's doctor spoke up. "Medical supplies are good, Captain. Though Jai-ho would like everyone to actually come in for their scheduled checkups." She gave a pointed look at several crew members. Tai raised his hand. "I've been noticing something strange in the air circulation system. The readings keep changing when no one's touching the controls." Juri stiffened. She had been examining the ship's systems yesterday. Had she accidentally changed something? "Run a diagnostic," Hyun ordered. "Probably just a sensor malfunction." "It's not the sensors," Tai insisted. It's hard to explain. It feels like someone else is in the room sometimes, watching." A chill ran through Juri. This was not good. Not good at all. "You've been working too hard," Jai-ho said kindly. "Come by medical later. I'll give you something to help you sleep." Ta nodded, but Juri could see he wasn't convinced. As the meeting ended and people filed out, she noticed Ta lingering, his eyes scanning the room slowly. For a moment, she thought his gaze passed over her, but that was impossible. No one could see her. That was the way it had always been. For the next few days, Juri kept her distance from Ta. She focused on other crew members, on the ship's operations, but she couldn't stop thinking about the way he had seemed to sense her presence. On the 7th day, curiosity got the better of her. She went to the medical bay, where Jai-ho was updating records. "Tai's file is interesting," Jai-ho said to her assistant. "Did you know he has that rare condition? The one that lets him see colors differently." "Tetrachromacy?" the assistant asked. "I thought only women could have that." "Usually, yes, but Tai's case is unique. Combined with his synesthesia, his brain processes visual information unlike anyone else. He can perceive patterns most people miss." Juri moved closer. This was important information. "He said he's been seeing things," Jai-ho continued. "Distortions in the light. I told him it's probably stress, but with his condition." The assistant laughed. You think there are ghosts on the ship? Of course not, Jai-Ho said. But there are many things in this universe we don't understand yet. Ju-Rai left the medical bay with a growing sense of unease. Could this human, with his special way of seeing, actually detect her? It should be impossible. Nerillian invisibility was perfect, a result of millions of years of evolution. Yet Ta had sensed something. Late that night, when the ship was quiet, Ju-Rai went to the engineering bay. She needed to examine the human technology more closely. Her people wanted to know how humans had advanced so quickly, spreading to 3-star systems in less than a century. The room was empty, or so she thought. She had just begun examining a control panel when she heard a voice behind her. I knew I wasn't imagining things. Ju-Rai spun around. Ta stood in the doorway, staring not quite at her, but close, too close. She didn't move, didn't breathe. He couldn't actually see her, she reminded herself. He was just guessing. Ta stepped forward slowly. I can see the way the light bends around you. Not clearly, but enough to know something's there. He reached out a hand. Who are you? Ju-Rai backed away. This was against all protocols. No contact. No interaction. Observe only. Those were the rules that had kept her people safe for thousands of years. I won't hurt you, Ta said softly. I just want to understand. His hand moved closer. Ju-Rai should have run. Should have disappeared into the depths of the ship where he couldn't find her. Instead, she stayed frozen in place as his fingers moved through the air. And then, the impossible happened. His hand touched her arm. Tae's eyes widened. You're real, he whispered. For the first time in her life, Ju-Rai knew what it felt like to be seen. How? She asked, her voice unused to speaking aloud. No one can see Nerillians. No one. Nerillians, Tae repeated. His hand was still on her arm, as if afraid she might disappear if he let go. Is that what you are? An alien? Yes. There was no point in denying it now. My people have been watching yours for years. I was sent to observe this mission. Ta didn't look afraid, just amazed. But I can barely see you, just a slight shimmer in the air when you move, and only sometimes, in certain light. Our bodies bend light, Ju-Rai explained, still trying to understand how this human could detect her at all. It should be perfect camouflage. No species has ever been able to see us. I see things differently, Ta said. Colors, patterns. My brain processes visual information in unusual ways. The doctors have been studying my condition for years. Ju-Rai suddenly understood the danger she was in. You can't tell anyone about me. My mission is to spy on us. Now there was a hint of suspicion in his voice. To observe, she corrected. We don't interfere. We just watch and learn. Why? Such a simple question, but Ju-Rai found she didn't have a simple answer. Because that's what we've always done. We study other species to understand the galaxy better. Humans are interesting to us. Interesting how? Ta was still holding her arm, though his grip had relaxed. You're different. Most species take millions of years to develop space travel. You did it in thousands. You're adaptable, resilient, and dangerous. Ta frowned. We're not dangerous. Your history suggests otherwise. His hand finally dropped from her arm. So you've been on our ship, watching us, all this time. How many of you are there? Just me, Ju-Rai said. This mission was only meant to last 6 months. Tai was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then he asked, what happens now? It was a good question. Contact with other species was strictly forbidden. By the laws of her people, Ju-Rai should leave immediately, return home, report the failure of her mission. But she was curious. No one had ever seen her before. No one had ever spoken to her, knowing what she was. I don't know, she admitted. This has never happened before. Ta smiled then, a warm, genuine smile that took Ju-Rai by surprise. Well, I'd like to know more about you and your people, and I promise not to tell anyone else on the ship, at least for now. Why would you keep my secret? Juri asked. Because you've been here for months and haven't hurt anyone, and because I think we could learn from each other. He held out his hand again, this time in a deliberate gesture. I'm Ta. It's nice to officially meet you. After a moment's hesitation, Juri reached out and took his hand. I'm Juri. It was the first time she had touched another being who could see her, the first time she had spoken her name aloud to someone not of her kind, the first time, in a lifetime of watching, that she herself had been seen. Meet me here tomorrow night, Ta said, his voice low even though they were alone in the engineering bay. I have so many questions. Juri nodded, then remembered he could barely see her. Yes, she said aloud. But you must promise again not to tell anyone. I promise. Ta looked at the spot where her voice came from. This is incredible. I always knew there was something more out there in the universe. I just never thought I'd be the one to find it. After he left, Juri stayed in the empty room, trying to calm her racing thoughts. This was a disaster. Contact with humans was strictly forbidden. If her elders found out, she would be removed from the mission immediately. Worse, they might decide humans were too dangerous to observe at all. But another part of her felt something new. Excitement. For years she had watched other beings, never interacting, never connecting. Now someone could see her. It was frightening, but also thrilling. The next day, Juri followed Tai as he went about his duties. She watched him check the ship's engines, fix a broken panel, and talk with other crew members. Several times he looked in her direction and smiled slightly, as if he knew she was there. During lunch in the mess hall, Captain Han sat down next to Ta. How are those strange readings in engineering? The captain asked. Find anything? Ta hesitated. Juri held her breath. Just a minor glitch, Ta said finally. I fixed it. Han nodded. Good. We can't afford problems this far from home. When the captain left, Ta looked toward where Juri stood near the wall and gave a small nod. He had kept her secret. That night, Ta came to the engineering bay with a small device in his hand. I made something, he said when Juri greeted him. It might help me see you better. He put on what looked like special glasses. As he looked at her, his eyes widened. It works, he said excitedly. I can see your outline much clearer now. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Juri asked. I don't know. Little green being, maybe. But you look almost human, except for the eyes and the skin tone. Juri moved closer. My people evolved on a world not unlike Earth. We have 2 arms, 2 legs. It's a good design for tool-using species. But the invisibility, that's not something humans can do. It developed over millions of years, she explained. As a defense mechanism at first. Later, it allowed us to study other species without changing their behavior. Tai sat down on a bench and motioned for her to join him. How many species have you studied? 27 so far. Humans are the newest. And what have you learned about us? Juri thought carefully before answering. You're unexpected. Most species follow predictable patterns. They develop technology slowly. They expand carefully. Humans move quickly. Take risks. It makes you interesting. Is that why you're here? Because we're interesting. Yes, and because some of my people think you might be dangerous. Ta frowned. Dangerous how? Your history is full of conflict. You solve problems with violence more often than most species, and you're spreading quickly through this section of the galaxy. We're just exploring, Ta said defensively. The Serenity is a research vessel, not a warship. I know, Juri said quickly. That's what I've been reporting back. That humans are curious, not conquering. Ta seemed to relax a little. So how does it work, your reporting? Do you have some kind of alien communication device? Juri touched the band on her wrist. This sends data packages when you pass certain star formations. The information travels through. It's hard to explain in your language. Think of it as a shortcut through space. Faster than light communication. Ta leaned forward, excited. We've been trying to develop that for decades. It's limited, Juri said, and it only works at certain points in space. They talked for hours. Todd told her about Earth, about growing up near the ocean, about how he had always known he was different because of how he saw the world. Juri told him about her homeworld, Naril, with its 2 moons and vast forests. I've never talked to anyone like this, she admitted. Observers don't usually connect with their subjects. Is that what I am? A subject? You were, she said slowly. Now I'm not sure what you are. Ta smiled. How about a friend? Friend. The word hung in the air between them. Juri had studied human friendships, noted the behaviors, the patterns of interaction, but she had never experienced it herself. Yes, she said finally. I think I would like that. Over the next few days, they established a routine. During the day, Juri continued her observations of the ship and crew. At night, she would meet Tai in engineering or his private quarters to talk. He improved his special glasses and could now see her quite clearly. He taught her about human music, showing her how to use the ship's entertainment system. She told him stories about other worlds she had visited, civilizations humans hadn't yet encountered. There's something I don't understand, Ta said one night. If your people have been observing other species for thousands of years, why haven't you made contact before? You must be far more advanced than us. Technology isn't everything, Juri replied. My people value knowledge and understanding. We believe contact changes things, influences development. We prefer to watch, to learn, without interfering. But you're interfering now. With me. Juri looked down at her hands, visible to herself, but mostly invisible to the world. Yes, and I'm breaking our most important rule by doing so. Do you regret it? She thought about the past weeks, the conversations, the laughter, the feeling of being truly seen for the first time in her life. No, she said. I don't regret it. One morning, alarms blared throughout the ship. Juri was in the science lab, studying human research methods when the noise started. She quickly made her way to the bridge, where the crew was gathering. Something's wrong with the navigation system, Hyun was saying as officers rushed around checking screens. We're being pulled off course. Sensors show a spatial distortion ahead, a young officer reported. It wasn't there in our last scan. Tai arrived, slightly out of breath. His eyes briefly found Juri in the corner before focusing on the main screen. It looks like some kind of gravity anomaly, he said, studying the readings. But the pattern is strange. I've never seen anything like it. Juri moved closer to see the screen. She recognized the swirling pattern immediately. It was a void pocket, a dangerous space phenomenon her people had encountered centuries ago. Several Nerillian ships had been lost to them before they learned how to detect and avoid them. She needed to warn them. But how? She couldn't simply speak up in a room full of people, and the ship was heading straight for danger. We need to change course, the navigation officer said. Hard to port. No, Ta said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him. I don't think that's the right move. The distortion seems to be pulling harder on that side. He was guessing, Juri realized, trying to buy time. His eyes flicked to her location, questioning. She needed to help him. Moving quickly to his side, she whispered near his ear. It's a void pocket. You need to go straight through the middle full speed. It's the only safe path. Tai cleared his throat. Captain, I suggest we increase speed and aim for the center of the anomaly. That sounds like suicide, Hyun said sharply. The readings suggest the gravitational pull is weakest at the center, Tai argued, repeating what Juri whispered to him. If we try to go around, we'll just get caught in the stronger fields on the edges. Hyun looked skeptical. You're sure about this? Trust me, Ta said firmly. I've been studying these kinds of phenomena. After a tense moment, Hyun nodded. Full speed ahead, straight through the middle. Ju-ray watched nervously as the ship accelerated toward what looked like certain doom. She had given Ta the correct information, but human technology was different from Nerillian. Would their engines be strong enough? The ship shuddered as it entered the edge of the void pocket. Warning lights flashed across control panels. Hold course, Hyun ordered as the bridge crew looked increasingly worried. For one terrible moment, the ship seemed to stretch, the metal groaning around them. Then suddenly they were through, emerging on the other side of the anomaly. We made it, the navigation officer said, sounding surprised. Sir, we're clear of the distortion field. Hyun turned to Ta. Good call, engineer. How did you know that would work? Before Ta could answer, Jeho spoke up from across the bridge. Yes, Ta. How did you know? You've never shown much interest in spatial anomalies before. Ju-ray saw the trap closing. Ta had no way to explain his sudden expertise. I've been doing some private research, Ta said weakly. Jeho raised an eyebrow. Really? I'd love to see it. That's enough, Hyun said. Whatever his methods, Ta just saved the ship. That's all that matters right now. But as the crew dispersed, Ju-ray noticed Jeho watching Ta with suspicious eyes. Their secret was starting to unravel. We need to talk, Ta whispered when they were alone in the corridor. Tonight. This is getting complicated. Ju-ray could only agree. For the first time, she wondered if she should leave the ship while she still could. But the thought of never seeing Ta again made her hesitate. She was starting to realize that being seen had changed her in ways she hadn't expected. They're getting suspicious, Ta said as soon as his cabin door closed behind them. Jeho keeps asking how I knew what to do with that void pocket. Ju-ray paced the small room, visible only to Ta with his special glasses. This is bad. If they discover me, my mission is over. My people will never allow observations of humans again. Is that really so terrible? Ta asked. Maybe it's time for our species to meet properly. Ju-ray stopped pacing. You don't understand. My people have strict rules about contact with other species. We watch, we learn, but we never interfere. What I've done, what I'm doing now, breaks thousands of years of tradition. Sometimes traditions need to change, Ta said softly. Before Ju-ray could respond, the ship's alarm blared again. All senior officers to the bridge, Captain Hyun's voice came over the speakers. Repeat, all senior officers to the bridge immediately. Ta grabbed his uniform jacket. I have to go. I'll come with you, Ju-ray said. Together, they hurried through the corridors. When they reached the bridge, they found the crew gathered around the main screen, faces grim. The void pocket was just the beginning, Hyun was saying. Sensors are picking up a massive space storm forming directly in our path, like nothing we've ever encountered before. On the screen, swirling energy patterns spread across their course. The colors shifted and changed, beautiful but deadly. Can we go around it? An officer asked. It's too large, the navigation officer replied. And expanding rapidly. At our current speed, we'll hit it in 6 hours. Ju-ray moved closer to the screen. She recognized this phenomenon too, a cascade storm. Her people had lost entire fleets to such storms before developing shield technology to withstand them. What about increasing power to the shields? Ta suggested, glancing briefly toward Ju-ray. Our shields aren't designed for this kind of energy pattern, the science officer said. They'll collapse within minutes of contact. Ju-ray knew she had to help, but this time a whispered suggestion wouldn't be enough. The humans needed detailed information about the storm to survive it. She leaned close to Ta. I know what this is. My people have encountered these storms before, but I can't explain everything in whispers. Ta nodded slightly. Captain, request permission to run some tests in engineering. I have an idea that might help. Make it quick, Hyun said. We're running out of options. In the engineering bay, Ta locked the door behind them. "Tell me everything you know about these storms," he said. "They're called cascade storms," Juri explained. "The energy builds in layers. Each layer triggers the next, creating a cascade effect. That's why they're so destructive." "How did your people survive them?" "We developed special shields that change frequency to match each layer of the storm. But your technology isn't advanced enough for that." Tai thought for a moment. "Maybe we could modify our existing shields, create a rotating frequency pattern. It might work," Juri said, "but you would need exact calculations for each layer of the storm, and a way to synchronize the shield changes." "I can't do that alone," Tai admitted. "And I can't explain to the others how I suddenly know all this without revealing your existence." Juri faced the hardest choice of her life: follow her people's rules and watch these humans die, or break those rules completely and reveal herself. She thought about the crew she had been observing for months: Captain Hyun, stern but fair; Dr. Jae-ho, kind and curious. The others, all working together, all with lives and dreams. And Ta, who had seen her when no one else could. "We need to tell them," she said finally. "About me. About everything." Tae's eyes widened. "Are you sure? What about your mission?" "The mission doesn't matter if you all die." Juri took a deep breath. "I've been watching humans for months. Now it's time to help them." When they returned to the bridge, the situation had worsened. The storm had accelerated, giving them only 4 hours before impact. "Captain," Ta said, his voice stronger than Juri had ever heard it, "I have information that can save the ship, but you need to trust me about where it came from." Hyun turned from the screen. "What are you talking about?" "We're not alone on this ship," Ta said. "We have a visitor, someone who knows about these storms." The bridge fell silent. All eyes turned to Ta. "Explain," Hyun demanded. "It would be easier to show you." Ta held up the glasses he had made. "These allow me to see something that's normally invisible to humans. Captain, if you'll put these on, you'll understand." After a moment's hesitation, Hyun took the glasses and put them on. His eyes widened as he looked at the spot where Juri stood. "What in the name of Earth?" he whispered. "Hello, Captain," Juri said. Hyun nearly jumped at the sound of her voice. "What is this? Who are you?" "My name is Juri. I'm a Neurillian observer. I've been on your ship for the past 3 months, studying humans." As the rest of the bridge crew watched in confusion, Hyun circled around what to them appeared to be empty space. "Ta, make more of these glasses," he ordered. "Everyone needs to see this." Within 30 minutes, enough devices had been made for the senior officers. The reactions ranged from fear to amazement as each person saw Juri for the first time. "She's been spying on us," Jae-ho asked, staring at Juri through her new glasses. "Observing," Juri corrected. "My people have studied many species across the galaxy. We never interfere. Until now." "Why reveal yourself now?" Hyun asked. "Because the storm ahead will destroy this ship unless you make specific modifications to your shields. My people have faced these storms before. I know how to survive them." Suspicion crossed Hyun's face. "How do we know we can trust you?" "She helped me navigate through the void pocket," Ta said. "She's had months to harm us if that was her intention." "Captain, we need her help." After a tense silence, Hyun nodded. "Show us what to do." For the next 3 hours, Juri worked with the engineering team. She explained the structure of cascade storms and helped them modify the ship's shields to create a rotating frequency pattern. Ta stayed by her side, translating complex concepts when needed. As they worked, the other humans watched her with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Some kept their distance, while others asked questions about her world, her people. "Why can't we see you naturally?" a young officer asked. "Neurillian bodies bend light," Juri explained as she adjusted a control panel. "It's a biological ability developed over millions of years." "Then how can Ta see you?" "My brain processes visual information differently," Tai answered. I can perceive patterns and like variations most humans can't. Jaiho, who had been listening, nodded slowly. Your condition, the one I've been studying. It's not just color perception. You're seeing frequencies outside normal human range. Apparently so, Ta said with a small smile. As the final adjustments were made, Captain Hyun called everyone to attention. We're about to enter the storm. All hands to stations. Prepare for turbulence. The ship trembled as it approached the swirling energy field. On the bridge screens, colors flashed and changed, beautiful and terrifying. Shield modifications complete, the engineering officer reported. Entering storm in 3, 2, 1. The navigation officer counted down. The first wave hit like a physical blow. The ship shook violently. Warning lights flashed across control panels. Shield frequency shifting to match first layer. Ta called out, holding at 87%. Ju-Ray watched the readings carefully. Prepare for second layer in 10 seconds. Frequency will need to increase by 0.3 units. The next wave hit, stronger than the first, but the modified shields held. Layer by layer, the ship pushed through the storm. Each time, the shields adjusted according to Ju-Ray's instructions. The humans worked together seamlessly, following her guidance without question now. Their survival depended on it. As they passed through the final layer, a cheer erupted on the bridge. They had made it. Shields holding at 42%. The engineering officer reported. We're through the worst of it. Captain Hyun turned to where Ju-Ray stood. It seems we owe you our lives. Thank you. Ju-Ray nodded, overwhelmed by the moment. Never in her life had she expected to be thanked by another species, to be acknowledged, to be seen. What happens now? Jaiho asked the question everyone was thinking. What do we do with our invisible guest? Hyun looked thoughtful. That's a complex question. One that goes beyond just this ship. This is first contact with an alien species. My people will not be pleased, Ju-Ray said quietly. Contact is forbidden. When they learn what has happened. Ta moved to her side. Then we need to make sure they understand why it happened. That humans can be trusted. Ju-Ray wasn't sure that was possible. For thousands of years, Nerillians had watched other species from the shadows. The idea of open contact, of being seen, went against everything they believed. But as she looked around at the humans who had just worked with her, trusted her, despite only learning of her existence hours ago, she wondered if perhaps her people had been wrong all along. Perhaps being seen wasn't something to fear. We should talk, Hyun said. All of us. About what this means for both our peoples. As the crew began to discuss the implications of her presence, Ju-Ray caught Ta's eye. He smiled, a warm, reassuring smile that seemed to say everything would be all right. For the first time since revealing herself, Ju-Ray allowed herself to hope that might be true. 2 days had passed since the storm. 2 days since Ju-Ray had revealed herself to the crew of the Serenity. Everything had changed. Captain Hyun had given her quarters of her own, though she rarely used them. The humans found it unsettling when she disappeared from their sight, so she wore a small light on her wrist that blinked softly, letting them know where she was. Most of the crew had adjusted to her presence surprisingly well. Some were still afraid, keeping their distance when she walked by. Others were endlessly curious, asking questions about her world, her people, and how she had managed to observe them undetected for so long. It's strange, Jaiho said as she ran a medical scanner over Ju-Ray's arm. Your body structure is remarkably similar to ours, yet your cells bend light in ways I can't even measure. They were in the medical bay. Jaiho had asked to study Ju-Ray, and after some hesitation, she had agreed. Evolution finds similar solutions on different worlds, Ju-Ray explained. 2 arms, 2 legs, a central brain. It's a good design for tool users. But the invisibility, that's completely unique, Jaiho said, fascinated. At least, unique to us. It served us well for thousands of years, Ju-Ray said softly. Until now. Jaiho looked up from her scanner. You regret revealing yourself. I don't know, Jurei admitted. I was raised to believe contact with other species was dangerous. That we should watch, learn, but never interact. Now I've broken our most sacred rule. To save our lives, Jaiho reminded her. Yes, but my people may not see it that way. The door to the medical bay opened, and Ta walked in. He still wore his special glasses, though they had been improved. Now all the senior officers had them. How's the examination going? He asked. Fascinating, Jaiho said. Jurei's biology is teaching us so much about light manipulation. The applications could be enormous. Ta smiled at Jurei. The captain wants to see us on the bridge. When they arrived, Captain Hyun was standing by the main screen with several other officers. We've been discussing our next steps, Hyun said as they entered. This situation goes beyond just our ship. We've made first contact with an advanced alien species. Earth needs to know. Jurei felt a chill. You want to report my presence to your government. It's protocol, Hyun said. But more importantly, this could be the beginning of a relationship between our worlds. Think of what we could learn from each other. My people don't want a relationship, Jurei said, trying to make them understand. They believe isolation is safer. Even after everything that's happened, Tai asked. You helped us. We accepted you. Doesn't that prove anything? Jurei looked around at the humans watching her. They had moved from fear to acceptance in just days. It was remarkable. Perhaps, she said slowly, but I am just one Neurillian. My people have avoided contact for countless generations. Then help us change their minds, Hyun said. We're preparing a message to send back to Earth. We'd like you to record something as well, for your people. That night, Jurei sat alone in her quarters, thinking about what to say to her elders. How could she explain her decision to reveal herself? How could she make them understand that these humans were different from what they had believed? A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called. Tai entered, carrying a small device. I thought you might want to see this. We've been analyzing the data from when you helped us through the storm. He set the device on the table and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing the ship's passage through the Cascade storm. The way our shields responded to your modifications. It was perfect, he said, pointing to the energy patterns. Our scientists say we would never have figured this out on our own. Not in time, anyway. Your people learn quickly, Jurei said. Given enough time, you would have developed similar technology. Maybe, but that's not the point. Ta sat down across from her. The point is that we're stronger together than apart. Your knowledge and our adaptability. Think of what we could accomplish. Jurei studied the human before her. In the short time she had known him, he had changed her understanding of everything. He had seen her when no one else could. He had trusted her when others doubted. There's something else you should know, she said finally. Something important about humans. What's that? In all our years of observing other species, no one has ever detected a Neurillian. Our invisibility has been perfect, until you. Ta smiled slightly, just because of my unusual vision. No, Jurei shook her head. It's more than that. Your species' visual range, the way your brains process information, it's exceptional. Most species perceive only what they've evolved to see. Humans look for what might be hidden. Is that good or bad? It's extraordinary, Jurei said. And it's why my people should reconsider their views on contact. Humans can see things others cannot, perceive patterns others miss. Together, we could understand the universe in new ways. The next morning, Jurei made her decision. She would contact her people. The communication room was cleared except for Captain Hyun, Jaiho, and Ta. Jurei activated her wrist device, adjusting it to send a direct message to Neril. This will break protocol, she warned them. My device is only meant to send data packets, not personal communications. Will they respond? Hyun asked. I don't know, but they will receive it. She began to record her message, speaking in her native language. She told them about the storm, about how she had revealed herself to save the humans. She explained how Tai could see her, how human perception was unlike anything they had encountered before. Most importantly, she told them about what she had learned, that observation without interaction provided only half the picture. That humans were not the dangerous, unpredictable beings they had feared, but potential allies who could see the universe in ways Nerillians could not. When she finished, she sent the message. Now all they could do was wait. 3 days later, Juri was in engineering with Ta when her wrist device beeped, a signal from Neril. Her hands trembled as she activated it. The response was brief, but clear. A shuttle was coming. Representatives from the Nerillian High Council wanted to meet these humans who could see the invisible. What does it mean? Ta asked when she translated the message. It means they're curious, Juri said, hardly believing it herself. In all our history, we've never initiated contact with another species. This is unprecedented. Word spread quickly through the ship. Captain Hyun called an emergency meeting to prepare for the arrival of the Nerillian representatives. How many are coming? He asked Juri. 3 elders, she replied. The highest members of our council. This never happens. Will we be able to see them? Jae-ho asked. Juri nodded. They'll bring technology to make themselves visible. They want to be seen. The statement felt heavy with meaning. For a species that had evolved to be invisible, choosing to be seen was a profound change. 5 days later, the Nerillian shuttle arrived. It appeared suddenly next to the Serenity seemingly out of nowhere. The crew gathered in the main docking bay. Ta stood next to Juri, who could feel her heart beating rapidly in her chest. Are you okay? He asked softly. I'm afraid, she admitted. What I've done changes everything for my people. Change can be good, he said, taking her hand. The shuttle door opened. 3 tall figures emerged, their bodies shifting from near invisible to fully visible as they activated devices on their chests. The Nerillian elders looked similar to Juri, but taller, with deeper skin tones and elaborate markings on their faces. Captain Hyun stepped forward. Welcome to the Serenity. I am Captain Hyun of Earth. The center elder nodded. I am Elder Neri of Meril. We have come because of something unprecedented. His eyes found Juri. Observer Juri. Step forward. She did, fighting to keep her voice steady. Elders, I can explain my actions. Your actions have already been explained, Neri interrupted. What interests us is him. He pointed at Ta, the human who can see what cannot be seen. Ta stepped forward. I'm Ta, ship's engineer. The elders studied him with intense interest. In thousands of years of observing other species, no one has been able to detect our presence, Neri said. Yet you did. How? My brain processes visual information differently than most humans, Ta explained. I can see patterns and light variations others can't. Show us, another elder demanded. Ta explained his special glasses, how they enhanced his natural ability. The elders examined them with great interest. Remarkable, Neri said finally. We believed our evolutionary advantage was perfect, yet human perception found a way to overcome it. Does this mean you're willing to consider formal contact between our species? Hyun asked carefully. The elders conferred briefly in their own language before Neri answered. Observer Juri's report suggests humans possess unique perceptual abilities that could be valuable. There is much we could learn from each other. Juri could hardly believe what she was hearing. Thousands of years of isolation, and now her people were considering open contact. We propose an exchange, Neri continued, a human representative to visit Neril, and a Nerillian representative to visit Earth. I volunteer, Ta said immediately. And I would be honored to represent Neril on Earth, Juri added. The elders nodded in approval. Then it is agreed. A new chapter begins for both our peoples. As the humans and Nerillians began discussing the details of this historic arrangement, Tay turned to Juri. "So much for invisible observation," he said with a smile. "Sometimes being seen is better than remaining hidden," she replied. "You taught me that." "No," Ta said, taking her hand. "We discovered it together." Juri looked around at the humans and Nerillians talking, sharing ideas, beginning to build connections that would span worlds. All because one human could see what no one else could. She had spent her life believing that remaining unseen was safety. Now she understood that being truly seen, being known, understood, accepted, was something far more valuable. And it had taken a human's unique perception to show her the truth.